This is from Maine with Love, an Allagash brewing podcast where we talk about beer, our community here in Maine, things that generally make us happy, and I'm coming in hot. Secret question for Lindsay Bohanske, experienced specialist here at Allagash. My secret question for you is, what's the best cheese?
Oh, yes, cheese. Oh, I'm so happy about this. You didn't sneak up on me. I feel prepared for this a little bit.
I knew you would be. Yeah.
Oh boy, I'm gonna forget the name of it, but I love triple cream, like kind of brie adjacent kind of cheese.
Nice.
There's this one called Dauphinois. Oh,
Dauphinois.
My God.
What region of France is that from?
I have no idea, but it's the place where the good happy cows are.
Oh, yeah. You don't want that sad cow cheese.
No.
Only the happy.
No, tastes like happiness.
That's awesome.
It's my favorite with triple. And triple is my go-to Allagash beer. And so that beer with triple, it's like kind of like mushroomy, like earthy.
Yeah.
But and like creamy and rich. But it's still really light, and it pairs with so many things. And triple with like those notes of honey, it's just the best.
Well, you've taken away one of my questions, I think.
Uh-oh.
No, that was awesome.
I am a mind reader.
No, that was that's amazing. I feel like I can't get away from aged Gouda. Just the longer it's aged, the better. If it was just like a big crystal, that's how I'd like my Gouda.
Yes.
Just that
extra
the crunchy.
So
good.
Do you Beamster?
Beamster is the one.
Oh,
yeah.
XO.
It's so available. It's so available, and it's so good.
It's so good.
Oh,
it's
good. When you put that on the board, it's just very good.
Yeah, that's definitely one of my go-to cheese board cheeses. We're making a cheese board. My daughter's birthday's coming up, and we're going to make a humongous charcuterie board. We have this giant cutting board with double handles that we have at home, and we're just going to put.
She's a charcuterie fan.
Girlfriend eats everything. She eats raw oysters.
Whoa.
She loves shrimp.
Wow.
She doesn't like bread.
Yep. You know
what kind of weird tot this? She's strange.
But how old is she?
She'll be 4 on the 26th.
That's funny. I feel like my daughter, who's 5.5, did I'm gonna eat everything, and then completely reversed course, and was like, now I eat like peanut butter and jelly, but not that jelly. So
I'm really hoping that doesn't happen.
Really. I am too. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. So thank you for joining us here today. And we're here to talk about tours and tastings here at Allagash, which Lindsay is heading up a lot of the experiences here and guiding that program.
Yeah.
So I think to kind of ground people, what is the literal space like that they're going to be entering when they come for a tour or tasting experience here?
Yeah, so when you come to the brewery for a tour or tasting, you check in the tasting room. The space that we are kind of actually touring and tasting is adjacent to the main brewery, and just a little stroll down the walkway over to the cellars, which is a combination of private event space as well as ticketed tours and tastings. Nice. And we can do walk-ins if we have space. Although in the summertime, it gets a little crazy. This is the best time of year. Like shoulder season and wintertime are the best time for walk-ins at least. But
nice.
So you check in the tasting room, park there because that's where the big lot is. You have your ID checked. You just stroll right on down. And we always advise to give people extra time ahead of time just to make sure they can do all the things they need to do before they arrive.
Yep.
And then you are presented with the freshest Allagash White in existence.
Nice.
Upon your arrival and making sure that your ID has been checked. Yep. And then we walk around the cellar space, which is, to answer your actual question.
No, you're answering it. It's a good answer.
So the cellar space itself is kind of this beautiful bar area that is amongst the fooders and barrel aging program that now exists in that building, which is also the birthplace of Allagash, where Rob, our owner, started the business back in 1995. Yeah. So it's kind of a combination of a historical tour as well as a tasting if you do our signature beer and barrels experience. And then we also have what we call our origin tour, which is a slightly shorter and then, just kind of a walkthrough of the space and kind of peek behind the scenes that way. So
That's awesome. Yeah, I think two things that come to mind are, one, a fooder is also, I mean, I feel like there are a ton of pronunciations like foodra, foder, but it's a big wine barrel.
Yeah. Imagine basically a barrel that's like twice as tall as you.
Yeah.
It's a huge barrel.
Yeah. And so it's just and the other part that's kind of cool is like, or that's not kind of cool, it is cool, is the fact that there's just actual beer aging in there. Like that's real beer that we're going to package and then release. Like it's not like a set or a prop. It's like it's actual a real live
production space. Yeah. And actually we have to do a little safety spiel even because, don't touch anything. It's real. It's real.
That's real.
Don't touch the nails.
Don't touch that beer. Yeah. So that does kind of lead into the next question, which is basically, what is the most consistent reaction that guests have to the space? Or like, do people like, they're like, I didn't know it was going to be like this? Or
I think actually we sort of talked about it already. People are like, so this is really pretty, but like, what is it? Like, what is that? Is there beer in these barrels? Like, what is it? Do you guys make wine? Like I think there's some confusion just because barrel aging beer, especially on that level and scale, is pretty unique and very niche. And we spend a lot of our time kind of just talking through some of the more niche styles that we do make. I mean, Allagash white is ubiquitous in some regions of the country. But also the other thing that people are always shocked by is this is it. Like, this is where all of it is made. We have one facility. We have one barrel aging program space building. And there's one guy that owns this place, and he's awesome and takes great care of us. So, it's just, I think that to me is always people, especially like we had visitors recently from California, and we do sell beer in California. And people in California and Chicago especially are always shocked by how small our footprint actually is. They're like, oh, well, you guys just sell beer everywhere, don't you? Mainers too. Mainers think that we sell beer everywhere. So that's always fun, just to kind of be like, nope, this is it. The production facility next door, we have a picture of it. You can see the brew house. And every single one of those beers is handmade with love right here in Portland, Maine.
Yeah, the other part of it too is like, I think there's the wide conception of people is that Allagash white is like literally the only thing we do.
Yes.
And it which totally makes sense because it is the most like easily findable beer. It's in a ton of different bars. It feels the same as so many other beers, but it is funny. Like when you actually step into the space, it's like, no, we brewed 112 pilot batches last year. That's not necessarily everything available to the public. I think about 12 of those come out as our For Maine with Love beers, and then with a lot of other one-off sort of beers and stuff like that. But like we are constantly brewing new stuff.
You'd be amazed at how many people have never had beers like Triple or Curio.
Right.
I mean, truly, when we first started doing these experiences, we were like, let's do all the crazy, we wanted to like deep dive into all of our wild and sour beers. And that worked great. And people were into it and like here for it.
Yeah.
And then we realized, man, there's a lot of people that have never had even like our core brands. We should probably kind of ease people in a little bit.
Yep.
So now we kind of, the way we sort of structure our signature experience now is we have white as always a welcome sample, like the first thing that that you get to taste. And then we always do a couple of what we call, tame beers, for lack of a better word, specialty beers. Sometimes it's a beer like Triple or Curio that just are great stories and things that we can talk about because those beers are sort of evergreen and just so many people have never had them. And then we always do kind of a specialty like From Maine with Love or kind of a limited release beer that you can only get in the tasting room or the cellars. And then we dive into our wild and sour program, usually with something that's like totally unique. And then we always do something that has touched the cool ship, which we also get to see during the experience and actually walk into that space.
That's awesome.
So that's kind of the way that our signature tasting has evolved. And it's really nice because, we tell people you're going on a flavored journey with us, guys.
That's cool.
Everybody likes different things. You might not like every beer you try, but they're all really cool, really well crafted, and, made with love. So
that's awesome. Is there any particular beer that is kind of like a consistent like hit with the folks?
Triple.
Yeah.
And Interlude.
Oh, Interlude, sure.
Yeah, I don't want to like spoil it for everybody, but we often do like an extra splash of something. Ooh. There's always like a little extra, a little something extra.
That's cool.
Sometimes, depending on what we have in production, sometimes we can do, even really fun like barrel pours or fooder pours or even just like deep stash bottle pours, because a lot of the cool thing about the beer, a lot of the beers that we have for sale in the space and a lot of beers that we're selling as part of the Cellars series, which we have, are that those beers will last significantly longer than most shelf stable beer.
Yeah.
And I'm talking like 5 years.
Yeah, I think that's what we
years.
put. Yeah, we put 5 years on the like website, but I know
God,
that Jason just broke out a 10-year-old bottle of Interlude in particular, and it tasted ridiculous.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. And that beer is like, I describe it as my deathbed beer.
Wow.
Like if I had to have one beer before I died.
That's incredibly morbid.
I know. But that's like the feeling that I have. It's
like that.
It's very dramatic.
I really like that.
It's very dramatic.
Oh man, that's awesome. I wasn't expecting it to go there, but yes, I like that. Yeah.
I mean, because it's not something I want to drink every day. It's a strong beer.
Yeah. Totally.
But like when I just think about like the last thing I want to have, it's the beer.
It is really, yeah. No, I completely agree with that. Oh yeah, we're going to back up a teensy bit. And so can you describe triple for me?
Yes.
Or us, or the folks?
I'd love to.
Thank you.
My go-to. Okay, Allagash Triple is a Belgian-style golden ale that would have originated a couple hundred years ago with monks brewing in Belgium and around France. And so it's technically a kind of a stylistically monastic style or Trappist style. And really all that is a lot of content, but the beer itself is just so remarkably drinkable and refreshing while still being really flavorful. And it has notes of honey and passion fruit. And it kind of up front feels a little sweet, but then it finishes nice and dry. And that's, one of the hallmarks of Belgian beer ethos, which is something that we really ascribe to here at Allagash, is that balance and drinkability are really the key factors in the drinking experience. And I think Allagash Triple, second only to the White, is one of our most awarded beers out there. So it's just such a great beer, and it's amazing to me how few people have actually had our triple.
Yeah.
And, I think sometimes people get a little bit confused, like, what is a triple? It's kind of spelled a little weird. It's TRIPEL. We just pronounce it like triple, not triple.
Yeah.
But, so I think people sometimes think, is it a triple IPA? Like, what is that about?
Yeah.
But then once they try it, they're like, oh, I get it.
Yeah. It's like, I remember trying my first triple, and I think it was prior to me being familiar with Allagash at all. And I feel like I viewed it as kind of like a souped up version of Allagash White, where it had so many of the similar flavor notes, but like more of them. And I was like, what is this? It was like a cheat code. I'd like unlocked the beer. And so I think that now that I understand it, I understand why it has more flavor in certain areas and why it's a different occasion for that beer. But
totally.
So if you like any sort of wheat beer, if you've ever been like, oh, wheat beers are a flavor I like, triple is like right up your alley.
I was just gonna say, it's just gonna sound weird, but back in the day when we didn't make a year-round IPA, it was also the beer I would always suggest to people to try, because even though it's really not very hoppy at all, it has those kind of fruit-forward notes that I think a lot of people like about hop-forward styles like IPAs. And so, especially like something like a double IPA, which is a little bit stronger and like slightly sweeter, it really always appealed to a very wide audience of drinkers, not just your typical like Belgian beer lovers. It really, the appeal of that beer is so almost universal. It's crazy.
Yeah. And so that connects to Curio.
Yes.
What is Curio?
So Curio is a wonderful treat that is a beer that actually happened sort of by accident. Back in the day when Rob and Jason were brewing in what is now the Cellars, we had an excess of triple that was sitting in a tank. And the story is that we ran out of bottles and there was extra triple sitting in a tank. And so back then we couldn't really just let it sit. We didn't have any kind of flexibility as far as our brewing schedule. We just had to move that beer somewhere. Yeah. And they didn't want to dump it because that would also be wasteful and terrible. So wasted beer, God.
No.
So Rob had some barrels lying around for a totally different project. And he decided, okay, we're going to put this triple in these freshly emptied bourbon barrels and it's going to be weird and we'll probably never do it again. But then it became this wonderful, curiously delicious elixir of love.
Yeah, and I think at the time too, the thing that was different about it was normally barrel-aged beers were dark.
Right.
It was stouts or porters or whatever, and this was a golden beer aged in bourbon barrels, and it just picks up these notes of like you get those notes that Lindsay was talking about in triple, but plus, this sort of almost like toasted coconut from the char of the barrel. You get a little bit of spirits.
Yeah, it's like to me, it's like the best things about bourbon, though. Like to me, I'm not a big like bourbon sipper, but you get those, like you said, those toasted coconut and like vanilla notes, and it's just crazy how it changes triple, but also you still get the triple in there too. It's just a wild beer.
You can tell me if you've heard this story, but I heard during that kind of like testing phase, we also tried to barrel age double.
Yes.
And that did not turn out.
Well. Rob said that was terrible.
Yes. So we didn't do that. We don't have bourbon barrel aged double. We have bourbon barrel aged triple.
Right. And I think the original goal with those barrels was to put something dark in there, which is why Rob was like, well, this is going to be weird.
Lucky for us.
Lucky.
They did it.
Happy accidents. We're full of them here at Allagash.
I mean, it's like
Interlude is
another happy accident.
Best example of that, I think.
Totally.
And this is, public information about this beer, so I don't think I'm sharing any secrets. But Interlude was one of the first really widely commercially available wild beer that we did.
Yeah.
Although Jason has said that in the past we were messing around with some wild cultures. So lactobacillus and pediococcus, which are two microorganisms that make beer a little bit tart. And so we had been playing around with some barrels and doing some things. But what happened with Interlude is that they were planning to make this kind of big celebratory saison, kind of a stronger farmhouse ale. And when it was fermenting initially, it basically just stopped fermenting. And then what happened is, they just sort of let the tank sit. And there's a lot of lore about how this actually happened. Yeah. Probably what happened is that the off pipe that actually went into the sterile bubble bucket, probably there was a gap.
Huh.
And so that's
the Lindsay theory.
I know. You've probably heard many stories.
I don't. I actually never heard a theory on how the wild yeast got in there.
That's what I've heard from Jason Perkins himself.
Oh.
So that's his theory. That's his theory.
I like that theory.
Our sanitizing bucket. So if you've ever been to a brewery, you see these big tall tanks of stainless steel, and there's usually a little off pipe valve. Or an off pipe that goes into a very fancy, sophisticated plastic bucket.
Full of what is it?
Sanitizing solution. Yeah, so it's just a sterile water solution that prevents wild yeast and bacteria from getting into the beer. So probably what happened is during this interlude of time where the beer was sitting, probably that bucket evaporated too much. That's the theory, at least.
All right. So wild yeast got in there.
Wild yeast.
Snuck its way in.
But the flavor was so cool. They were like, man, we got to figure out what this is. And so we ended up sending it out to an outside lab. They tested it. We discovered a brand new beer yeast, a type of Brettanomyces yeast that we all lovingly call Brett Michaels here at Allagash.
Yes.
And it native to Portland, Maine. And it has inspired so many things throughout the years. But we've been making Interlude now since 2006, 2005, maybe even. And there was 1 year we didn't make Interlude.
Oh, I don't remember that. This is
also
you don't even
need that. We don't even need to talk about it.
Okay, yeah, it never happened. We've made it every year. The other fun fact about Interlude, Thanksgiving beer. It's our inside the brewery perfect Thanksgiving beer.
It is indeed. Yeah. It's just a great holiday beer. I think even into like anything where you're going to have rich foods.
Yeah.
It drinks more like wine-like because it's portion of it is aged in red wine barrels. It can really stand up to like richer sauces, and it has some fruity elements. I mean, God, I love that beer so much.
Yeah. Speaking of pairing beer with food, that's actually one of the things we've been doing in the cellar space with our tasting experiences. So I guess like we've done these chocolate and cheese pairings. I know we're going to do more of them. What in your mind, Lindsay, is the magic of the chocolate and cheese and beer pairing? Like what makes it work?
Yeah. So I think there's something about the flavors in beer And the process, because if you think about it, both cheese and chocolate are fermented things.
Yeah.
So there's some harmonious flavors that exist in those things that beer really speaks to. And then as opposed to wine, which I love, and I need to make it clear, I also enjoy wine very much. So this is not meant to be shade on wine.
Shame wine.
Yeah.
Shame on them. Take that, Napa Valley.
So, there are, we talk about this during these kind of sessions, which are all super fun and a little educational as well.
Yeah.
But there are 3 reasons that beer pairs so well with a lot of different foods. So the first is that beer is carbonated, right? Beer has bubbles.
Yep.
And some wine has bubbles, that's true, But that carbonation
They're
really...
worse bubbles. They're bad bubbles. Beer is good bubbles. No, I'm just joking. I like wine too. Anyway, sorry, keep going.
So the carbonation in beer is super duper palate cleansing, and especially with rich foods like cheese and chocolate, like that ability for your tongue to just be lifted by those bubbles and just get yourself ready for another sip is crucial, and it really helps with like the drinking and eating experience. Like it's just a really nice combination of things.
Nice.
Secondly, beer has a wider range of alcohol percentages than wine. You can have a really low alcohol beer or a really high alcohol beer, and that really does affect the flavor and the food experience. Like there aren't very many wines that pair well with very spicy foods.
Sure.
And that's because the alcohol percentages of wines tends to make spice, just like spice and alcohol, higher alcohol levels tend to make really harsh flavors together.
Sure.
And so the drinking experience when you're especially doing anything that's like spicy or can really make the wine taste harsh.
Huh.
And then the most important reason is that beer has such a huge variety of flavors. I mean, it can have flavors of chocolate and coffee and caramel and toasted coconut like we just talked about.
Yep.
I mean, there's just this incredible flavor there's just a huge variety of flavors.
Right.
And it can be tart, it can be sweet, it can be really fruit forward. And so to me, you can always find a beer that pairs with any food.
Yeah.
And that's not true of wine.
I think it's such a good point too, but I think it's also probably the double-edged sword of beer in that you have to know which beers provide which flavors. So it's kind of incumbent on the pairer to pick the right combination.
That's true.
I feel like that's what makes this such a special pairing experience is because like we have people like you who are cicerones who have studied beer and know a lot about it and are able to kind of preset that stuff of like, this cheese is going to match perfectly with this type of beer.
Yeah.
And like you're guided. And I feel like once you have that experience, that's like that was my experience in the key to opening up beer for me, where I stopped being as like afraid of like, I don't know what all these different styles are, and a little bit more like, ooh, what else have I been missing? Sort of thing.
Totally. It's amazing how many beers there are that can taste like so many things, like beers that taste more like ciders, beers that taste more like wines. And Brett and I have had this shtick for a long time, but if you don't think you like beer, you probably haven't tried very many beers, or you may not have just tried the right beer.
Yeah.
So
give it a try.
Give it a try.
Even if you don't think. So I just want to talk through a couple, because we have some cool actual classes coming, or not classes. We'll call them experiences, but they're also kind of classes, but they're going to be really fun. We have one today, like literally the first one. I'm so excited. Yeah, it's our Sip and Learn series. So you want to talk about? I have them all written down here, but I'm sure you remember.
I'd love to. Them. Yeah, this is it's deeply ingrained into my mind bank. I've been working on this for the past few months. So tonight we are partnering up with Standard Baking, who is a local legend. They make incredible breads and treats right here in Portland. And they are coming to do basically a community sourdough class with us. So teaching people how to, basically create a starter, how to navigate sourdough, which is a kind of complicated and, almost like witchcrafty sort of. It is
100% witchcraft. Yeah, I have tried and failed. I've given up on sourdough.
It's so fun. And I've dabbled in sourdough, but I know that I have so much to learn. Yeah. We've sort of, I think it's going to be a really awesome just kind of question and answer. We're going to walk through, we have some recipes for people to actually look at and take home with them, as well as a jar so that they can create their own starter.
Oh.
And so we're going to walk people through how to do it. We're going to talk about some examples of different recipes, a day in the life, because that's the other thing about sourdough that can be kind of tricky is like scheduling it, because it's not just like, you're not just like whipping together a loaf and then
listen to the sourdough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta kind of, it depends on your temperature in your house. And like, there's a lot to it. And, once you kind of have it down, you can make some incredible bread at home.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited to hear from them and kind of, have this really awesome community experience, and they're so pumped. Like,
that's so sweet.
I'm really excited. So it's their show. They're going to be doing all of the Q&A. I'm just there to help moderate, and we'll have some beverages to pour people. So if people want to have, it is a sip and learn after all.
Yeah.
So people can be sipping on beers, or we also have our cider, and we also have one of the wines on draft in the cellars right now. So there's something for everybody.
Oh man. Yeah. We talked about, if you want to hear more about either of the cider or the wine, listen to the literally previous episode where we talked with Patrick for this extensively. And it's so cool. Really, really cool. And actually think of the sourdough too. Like, people who are listening to this podcast will have already missed that, because it happens tonight, and we're probably going to release this podcast in a couple days.
But Brett, we sold out.
I know, we sold out too
quickly.
So that's the thing, is maybe we'll have another.
And my goal, I hope, and please, standard, please. My hope is that we'll be able to do it again in the fall.
Yeah.
So, it's been just so well received, such a huge and incredible interest in doing it. So I would be shocked if we couldn't make it happen again in the fall time. I'm hoping we do the whole Sip and Learn series in the fall, frankly. I mean, fingers crossed. So.
Yeah. I mean, like I feel like beer and bread are cousins. Yes. They're just like the similar ingredients in a different way that you put it together, but like,
I mean, back in the day, beer and bread were probably synonymous.
Yeah.
In the early ages of existence.
Really?
Yes. And the reason that civilization settled into these agrarian societies was because they had to plant crops. They had to plant food.
Yeah.
And so the thing that made people stop to plant grain was beer and bread.
Wow. You ready for this? You ready for this one? Company. The word company means with bread. Pan.
Oh, yes.
Right? It's freaking nuts, man.
Nuts.
Bread and beer, bringing people together.
Love
Something's
that.
happening over there. Anyway, sorry. So, just so Patrick like wheeling something by. Anyway,
Zach Boda with a keg, and
you got. Oh, it's for the lager social. Ooh, internal information. We're having a social. Talk about a beer. Wait, let's list off the other Sip and Learn series though, because if you're listening to this, there are others coming up. We have 3 more coming up planned after this. Mm-hmm. They are.
So in 2 weeks' time from today, so we're doing these on Thursdays. We're doing every 2 weeks, Thursdays in March and April. Mm-hmm. So the next one is
March 28th.
28th?
Yes.
Which is our flavor class. We're doing a beer flavor class. So learning what beer should taste like, what maybe it should not taste like.
Yep.
And we're going to get to try some examples of both good and bad beer.
Yeah.
With lots of good beer at the end.
I'll give you an experience. Literally yesterday, went to a bar, not going to name it, had a beer, diacetyl.
No.
I know. It's such a sad thing once you start to recognize it. And I'm not going to say this is going to ruin things for you, but it's a really interesting one to know, where diacetyl tastes like buttered popcorn. And if the bar does not keep their draft lines terribly clean, that can build up in the draft lines. So any beer that tastes like buttered popcorn, that was not intended by the brewer.
No.
That's just mostly draft line stuff. Anyway, so you'll learn stuff like that, where you'll be able to impress your friends or maybe annoy them by saying that beer has an off flavor. Hopefully not.
Yeah, it's just fun. And I think, generally speaking, it's going to be me and Brian who are running the show. And, we're both total beer nerds. But I think it's just, with these experiences, we're totally meeting people where they're at. We're not trying to like talk above them, it's the cool thing about these smaller group experiences, especially like the flavor classes, it's really conversational.
Yeah.
And we want people to get out of it what they're interested in. So we are going to kind of walk through some general kind of flavors, but then, it's just going to be a really fun opportunity to just like geek out on beer. So if you're just like interested in learning more about beer, it'd be a really fun thing to do.
That's awesome. All right, next one, April 11th.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this.
This is a good one too.
So our friends from Lady Shuckers
Nice.
are coming down to teach a class on shucking oysters. So you'll learn how to shuck like the pros.
Yeah.
And they are going to be bringing all the gloves, all the stuff, so you are prepared to go off into your life with a new skill, and that is shucking the world's tastiest bivalve. And we're also going to you're going to be able to purchase extra oysters if you want. Your ticket includes 6, and then you can add extras on either ahead of time or on site. And we'll have some snacks for people to nosh on and some music. And it's going to be like just a super fun. So the first part will be like 30 minutes of class, like really learning your new skill.
Yeah.
And then it'll just be like a really fun hangout sesh after that. And,
That's awesome.
They're awesome.
One thing I learned while shucking oysters in my time at Allagash, because we were lucky to have a lot of oyster farmer friends, is different oysters have different difficulties of shucking.
Yes.
Some crack on you, some are just like made out of steel. But it's nice when you get, when you learn to crack them.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's a super fun skill to have, especially up here. We have the best oysters. And,
Yes.
It's becoming. I was talking to Libby, and who owns like Lady Shuckers, and she is so passionate about doing it, and she's just seen like this massive increase in interest.
Has it really been actually increasing?
Yeah, they've
That's
seen really
super
like
cool.
a ton of interest in the oyster vibes because, as you know, like lobster right now is kind of tough. Lobster market is really struggling right now, and oysters are just, they're up.
Yes, I will. I think we're going to do an entire episode on oysters. I think we wanted to invite some oyster farmers that we know to talk about it because it's just like so interesting, so delicious, and like I 100% agree. I've never had better oysters in my life than here.
Yeah, and I'm excited because as part of the experience too, Libby's going to talk about, you'll get to learn a little bit about like aquaculture and oysters and stuff, and then shuck and slurp and
adult oyster can filter 50 gallons of water a day.
Wild.
One oyster. Yeah. Anyway.
So cool.
All right. Next one.
Okay.
April 25th.
Yes. Okay. So you may not know what marbling art is, but it is this incredible medium where you basically float paint, acrylic paint in this case, into these vats. And Claire, who is the owner of Tempered East, which is a local art, it's just her, but she is a local artist and she is obsessed with marbling paint.
Yeah.
And she's also an incredible teacher. So I've actually taken her class over at Factory 8. That's what it's called.
I don't know which number.
I forget.
Factory 9, Factory 7, Factory 6. Just cut one in, Matt. Go
I'm
one in.
like 95% sure it's Factory 8. But anyway, I went to her class because I'm an artist and I love to learn everything. I'm just basically a big nerd. I think I've realized in my adult life is I just like to learn
being a big
things.
nerd is awesome. I feel like we have a lot of big nerds here at Allagash. There are a lot of people who are interested in learning new things, which I think is awesome.
That's where this whole idea came from is like, let's give people something cool to do that's not like necessarily beer specific, but something that people can do and learn something and have a tasty beverage. And,
love it.
And see the beautiful colors. Anyway, so Claire is a marbling artist and it's so cool. And she's actually coming on Sunday on St. Patrick's Day, believe it or not, to do a little demo in the tasting room. So this probably won't be posted by then, but if you happen to be here on March 17th, she's going to be doing a demo because it's like mesmerizing. So basically you drop paint into this vat and then you can dip textiles, you can dip paper. So when I took the class, I came away with like a whole bunch of greeting cards and then just like some art, that we created. And each time you do it, you get a completely different effect. You can use tools to create different textures and different kind
swirls
of
and
swirls,
stripes,
exactly. And she's so good at like showing people. But then you have full reign to every person will have their own marbling vat. Everything is provided, including the paper and you're also going to get like a little cotton satchel, like a little baggie that you can dip as well.
Whoa. A
and
dippable baggie.
I know. It's so cool. And so it's awesome. And she's such a great teacher and you can just kind of play. It's like magic.
Yeah.
It's like hard to explain, but it's like magic. And we'll have videos and things and there's some pictures on the site of what all it looks like, and so you can kind of get a sense of, but it's just like super fun, abstract, like, and you can choose all your own colors. You can even mix your own colors.
Ooh.
It's so fun.
I think the thing
I'm kind of obsessed. Like I want to do it at home now.
you should do it at home.
And you can actually, she's going to bring, like you're going to get instructions to take home, so you can recreate the experience at home too.
It's awesome. The thing that pops to mind whenever I hear marbling is like if you have a really old book, like the inside cover, I feel like of old books always have that like special like color on, like that's marbling.
Yeah.
I've also got served up some YouTube videos in my time where it's like, here's 37 minutes of a marbling master in Japan. And I'm just like, yes, I will watch this entire video.
It's entrancing.
Yeah, it's good.
It really is. Like you should follow her on social media just so you can watch, because she posts a ton of videos. And it's so cool.
Yeah. That's awesome. All right. The only other thing I wanted to mention, and you actually already mentioned it, is just like this space is, we have all these events that we have planned, but it's also an event space that you can book. Like we've recently added this whole program of where we have all these sort of preset events that we have. And it's like, I mean, I think we can do that separately and talk about it more separately, but it's like, if something like this space is sparking for you, like, oh, I'd love to have a wedding reception here. I'd love to have like maybe a company meeting. Like we have an AV system set up so you can actually show a presentation and then turn it into a, happy hour for the team or whatever. Like it's a super customizable space that, if you're interested, go to allagash.com, you go to the visit section, you'll find all this information on there, and also all these events that you can book your own ticket to.
Yes.
So,
and a quick plug too, we're doing more of these sip and learn sessions, but then also we're doing a craft fair pop-up with Caravan Artist Market on May 5th, which is the week before Mother's Day.
Oh.
So it's a great opportunity to come out and shop local makers. There's so many talented Maine makers. Like, oh my God, it's unbelievable how many talented folks there are here. And so, so Caravan is coming to the Cellars. And so there'll be almost 30 vendors. We'll have Bite Into Maine food truck.
This is news to me.
Site.
This is exciting. I'm coming out for this.
I'm so pumped about
awesome.
it. It's going to be awesome.
Wow.
And so the tasting room will be open, and it's just a free event. People can come wander over from the tasting room and hang out and enjoy some delicious deep stash beers too, because that's the other cool thing about the Cellars is we offer different beers than the tasting room. So the whole Cellar series, and then a ton of really cool deep stash vintage beers too that we curate over there. So I'm so excited about that.
That's awesome.
So come shop for your mom and yourself.
That's awesome. Well, that's all I had, Lindsay.
Great.
Thank you for stopping by again. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Somebody told me recently in the Cellars that they recognized my voice.
Whoa.
And it was real trippy.
Whoa.
They're like, I think I've listened to you on the podcast.
Yeah.
Like, oh no.
we had a salesperson who ended up getting the job, but he was coming through, and he was like, they were like, oh, that's they was being introduced to people around like our little marketing space, and they're like, oh, it's Brett, and he's like, Brett from the podcast, and I was like, I need to like hide under my desk.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird.
It's very weird. But yes, thank you for listening to everyone who's listening. We really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Come visit me. Come do a tour tasting.
Come visit.
Come to Caravan. Come to Sip and Learn.
Awesome. All right. See you. Thank you, Lindsay.
Bye, guys.